and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our, let's say, Misunderstanding Today Recovery Podcast. Should be misunderstanding every day, but that's what we learn, isn't it? It's not about understanding. It's not about knowing. It's about experiencing and being open rather than thinking we've got this thing figured out. Thing being life, spirituality, which is one and the same. And we find with time that spirituality is not something way out there. It becomes the norm. It becomes normal for me to think of others other than myself, because that's my nature. It's in my nature to stand on what is already moving. It's in my nature to notice these things, to become aware. That's the most human way for me to live life. And sometimes when we've been at this for a while, I think this is one of the things we can get complacent about, is once the shine leaves, sometimes we have to reevaluate and say, what is it that I'm doing because I think I'm supposed to? And what is it spiritually or practices that really speak to me? And then stick with those things that really speak to us. First of the year, being as first of the year 2026, going through with each sponsee about what they're doing spiritually, what their practices were last year, what their practices are now, and what practices in review that they feel they need to drop. The ones that are performance, I read daily reflections every day. Are you listening, or are you just reading because you're supposed to and you're checking the box off? Oh, that's done. Good. I'm a good little AA. Get the head pat. Or am I seeing this as a way of life, and I'm desiring to practice in such a way that I'm getting to know myself better, maybe? I've used this example before. If I want to get to know Brian, I could go online and read about his business, look at his website, get whatever little bio he's got on there, and maybe find out some other things online if I dig deep. That's not getting to know Brian. That's just things about Brian. If I want to know Brian, I need to go spend some time with him. That's how I get to know him. So do our practices reflect the same thing? Are our practices about awareness, about this way of life? Or are our practices really a form of being with rather than being about? Is it more relationship? Words are hard to put this into a good description, which I think is impossible, but that's the best way I know of to look at that. So for me, I look back at and say, yeah, this speaks to me. I need more of this. This is more something that builds relationship building or awakening more than, oh, I did this and this, so I can check the boxes off. Maybe something to think about today. That's not our topic, but we're going to be talking about the joy of fishes. Of course, we can talk about that. I didn't even mention that to begin with. It just came up from a prior conversation, unexpected. If you guys have comments about that, I'm welcome to talk about it. But if we don't have comments, or we can move on, we'll talk about our story today. The one's good with me. I do want to talk about two things before we start on our story. And by the way, if you're new, the story today, right now we're going through Thomas Merton's interpretation of Chuang Tzu's work. We're, page 97, 98 in my book. And you can find a copy in the store at buddyc.org. But one of the resources I want to talk about are the back episodes of this podcast. If there's something particular, we're up to almost 400 podcasts. So if you go back and in our episodes, some you can search and find different things. But if there's anything particular that you're looking for, you can go back and maybe find some of that or scroll through the old episodes, maybe some things there that speak to you. If you enjoy the podcast, I'd highly recommend that. And you'll see how we've progressed in our discussion too, because I imagine you could pull any verse of the Tao, and we've talked about it at least twice, and see how our conversation changed, because I stopped looking at my old notes a long time ago. So I imagine there's times we talk about something totally different than we talked about the first time. That'd be interesting to see. So our back episodes is our resource for today, and we talk about a synchronistic moment as well that we're aware of. That doesn't mean it's all the synchronistic moments that's happening. That's just the ones I'm conscious of or we're conscious of. They're happening all the time around me. The water is flowing without my even being aware of it. Oscar, you going to share one with us today, sir?
And I can share two, actually, because you started with the Tao of our not understanding or misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And today's lesson in Course in Miracles is I do not understand anything I see. So that was a nice reminder.
Wow.
Okay, this is my day. I don't understand anything. It's wonderful, those little signs. But I wanted to share one I didn't have myself, but my wife had. My wife and I had a conversation a couple of days ago, and she's in a lot of stress very often for her work. And she's the kind of person that always runs from A to B to C, and when she's on A, she's thinking about B, and when she's on B, she's thinking about C. So she's always a little bit ahead of herself. And so when she's going to a shop, for instance, to buy anything, clothes or a tablet or whatever, she wants to go in the shop, buy it, and go because she wants to go to the next thing. That's how she is, or how she defines herself. And we were talking about this 2 days ago, and it's a careful suggestion for maybe slow down a bit. It could be good for you. Yeah. And she's already gone. But that's fine. But yesterday, she went to a yoga class. She was late and she wanted to get to the elevator, and then she thinks very fast. She sees in the corner of her eye the stairs, and she thinks, okay, if I take the stairs, I'm faster. And she runs it's a distance of a couple of meters. She runs to the stairs, and there's a window. So she bounds there, really hits the glass window and really hard. And everybody is in shock to help her and get eyes on her head. And so everything ended fine and okay. But in the evening, we were talking about this. I said, how much clearer can it be that you have to be stopped by something you don't see? So you had to be stopped by something you can't see to get back and down on your ass. It's really an amazing sign, or how do you say this in English? A sign or something, or a message. A message, okay, until here and not further. Because now we are going to get violent with you. So that was my share for synchronicity today.
So she saw that as her message that she's going to need to slow down and start looking at these things more clearly.
Yes, walk slower, start earlier, leave earlier, walk slower, be more in the present, watch out, don't think I have to be upstairs, but think I'm taking this step now.
Exactly.
So actually it's more being more in the present, and she realized that fully by this moment. Also because we had the conversation a day before.
Had a Bible teacher I used to listen to a good bit by the name of Bob Mumford. He called it taking a lap around the mountain. Those children of Israel had a chance to go in the promised land. This is a story in the Bible. And they were afraid that they couldn't do it. So what happened was they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years and let that generation die out. There were a few that got to go, some priests and Joshua and a couple of folks, but almost all the people died out. And then they came back to the same place, same river, everything. This time they said they could take it, and they went on in, they took the land. So what his jest was, hey, if you are proposed with an issue and you don't deal with it, you'll take a lap around the mountain and come back to the very same thing again until you deal with it. And of course, many times it can be more severe to get your attention, or that's how it seems to be. That happens quite often. I get that idea in my, I need to take care of this. And all of a sudden there's consequences next time that when I didn't take care of it. Oh, shit. I ever listen, that kind of thing. That's good. Thank you, Oscar. Oscar, you're going to read for us today, I think, too, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Let's do this thing.
The joy of fishes. Chuang Tzu and Hui Tzu were crossing Hao River by the dam. Chuang Tzu said, "See how free the fishes leap and dart. That is their happiness." Hui replied, "Since you're not a fish, how do you know what makes fishes happy?" Chuang said, "Since you are not I, how can I possibly know that I do not know what makes fishes happy?" Hui argued,
Yeah.
"If I, not being you, cannot know what you know, it follows that you, not being a fish, cannot know what they know." Chuang said, "Wait a minute. Let us get back to the original question. What you asked me was, how do you know what makes fishes happy? From the terms of your question, you evidently know I know what makes fishes happy. I know the joy of fishes in the river through my own joy as I go walking along the same river."
Thank you, Oscar. Of course, we talk about how these stories apply to our recovery, our ideas of the higher power or the present moment. We don't read these stories beforehand, so we'll sit through it for a while and see what happens. Brian?
I was just going to share a quick synchronistic moment. So my wife injured her foot a couple days ago and had to go to the orthopedic person, and she just came hobbling through. And I said, "Hon, do you have your boot on?" And she said, "No, I need to put it on." She said, "I'm rushing to get ready." So you're not alone, Oscar.
If our significant others had it together as much as we do.
I'm not going there. I'm going there,
buddy. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just messing.
Yeah.
Because that's why at the moment I don't have one. So.
Yeah. Some days, well, you're one to talk to.
Yeah, for real. I don't give relationship advice. Does not come from me. That's funny. Okay, so we have Chuang Tzu. We have, I'm going to say H. I don't know how to pronounce that. We have Chuang Tzu. We have his friend. We'll call him the friend. We have fish. We have happiness. We have I, you, fish. So they're crossing the river by the dam. So they're all in one locale. Chuang Tzu said, the fish are leaping and darting because they're happy. And his friend starts an argument. Maybe it's not an argument. Maybe he just wants to know, okay, Chuang Tzu, how do you know that makes a fish happy? Chuang Tzu replied, since you, talking to his friend, are not I. Well, first, his friend says, since you are not a fish, how do you know what makes fish happy? Chuang Tzu replies, since you, his friend, is not Chuang Tzu, how can you possibly know that I do not know what makes fish happy? His friend argued, if I, not being you, cannot know, you cannot know either. Chuang Tzu replies, wait a minute, let's get back to the original question. Now, that's important. How many times have I been in an argument that we end up arguing about something that had nothing to do with what we started arguing about? especially in relationships. Here it seems that what maybe the question he's asking is really the question he's asking. Is that really what he's asking? I don't know. So they're starting over, getting back to the original question. And his friend asked him, how do you know what makes fish happy? And from the terms of your question, it's evident that his friend knows that he knows. He's asking him, so he must think he knows. And the way Chuang Tzu verifies that or qualifies it, he says, I think this little phrase is the kicker. I know the joy of fishes in the river through my own joy as I go walking along the same river. Oscar.
Yeah, something in this is about, I think, about separation. So in separation, we don't know anything and we don't understand anything. It's the same as the lesson in A Course in Miracles today. I do not understand anything I see. I give all the things the meaning. I give meaning to the things. It has no meaning in itself. So here it's the same. I don't understand anything. I don't understand how you feel. I don't understand how fishes feel. So it's all based on interpretation of the ego. So I have to interpret the behavior of a fish, and then with my very intelligent brain, I can make a conclusion that they are happy or unhappy. But that's all working from the ego and from separation. And that's where they go in their quarrel. The ego doesn't know anything. It's just interpreting all it sees. It has no knowledge. It has only interpretation. So how can you know if you can only make interpretations? That's the question that follows from separation. How can you know anything? Because the only thing you can do is make interpretations. And then in the end, he says, no, I know because I have the knowledge. And how do I have the knowledge? The knowledge is just there in my own joy. So the happiness and the joy seems to be the same as knowledge.
He's back to experience again. Lou?
Yeah, it seems like his friend is getting caught up in this argumentative or logical, very logical, parsing the things and trying to tease out the logic of it. And when it comes right down to it, Chuang Tzu said he's not following that path. He's not following the path of logic and measurement and diagramming sentences for logic and those kinds of things. He's following the same river the fish are. Just the natural life, going with the flow of the river and not analyzing it. That's what it seemed like.
I think there was heavy
obviously, I'm sorry, buddy. Obviously, he can analyze when it needs to be a teaching point or when that's required. But his knowledge, as Oscar says, is not from that kind of ego generated.
There was a big emphasis on you and I. And I think what Chuang is saying is, I don't know because I didn't learn this. I know for my own joy. And how would he know that? It goes back to the oneness of all things. Notice they're walking along the same river. They're together. If Chuang Tzu didn't experience joy, he wouldn't know what the joy of fish were in this story. And if Chuang Tzu wasn't walking the same river, he wouldn't know either. I don't think. Because different rivers, some are faster, some are slower, made up of different. There may be something polluting the river upstream, who knows, of another river. He's walking the same river the fish are in. An easy application is recovery with this one. When the newcomer comes into the meeting, that newcomer's in the same river that I'm in. We may look different. We may be at different places with our sobriety, but we're in the same river. And I can share with him my joy, my experience, and he can choose himself whether he wants to apply it or not. Okay, Drew's got the answer. Here comes Drew's chiming in early, so let's see what he's got. Drew?
No, I don't have an answer, more of a question. This story's always given me a little bit of trouble. What I'm thinking about is, does Chuang Tzu see the fish as doing what comes natural to them? And he knows from his experience, when he does what comes natural to himself, that's when he's most at peace. That's when he's happiest. When he's outside of himself, when he's trying to contrive or meet others' expectations or grasp for things, try to control things, that's when he's not happy. That's when he's not experiencing any joy. And when he's just doing what's natural to him, that's when he's happy, and he sees the fish. He knows they're doing what's natural to them, so that's how he knows that they're happy. That's just kind of where I've gone with it today.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can see that. Lou?
Reminds me a little bit of when I came into recovery in Al-Anon, where I was looking for answers and really listening careful and trying to figure out what the answer is, and looking for the answer to something. And that's not the way it works. I wasn't listening so much for the experience of what other people went through and their stories as I was trying to find that little nugget that was going to be rational and something that I could use. And likewise, before I came to Al-Anon, I was looking for all kinds of rational ways of trying to get our son not to be drinking and taking all these different approaches and reading all these books and all that kind of stuff, trying to find a rational approach to it. And at some point, I read something or heard something that says you can't out-logic an emotion. And that seems to tie into the story. And that Chuang Tzu saying to his friend, it's not irrational. This is not a rational thing. This is beyond trying to reason this out on how fish are happy or they aren't happy. It's more of, again, of an experiential thing and knowing, as Oscar indicated.
Thank you, Lou. And maybe I was thinking this story was more about Schwantz and the fish, but maybe it's more about the friend. And it goes back to what I've realized over the years is not to ask the question why. Your answer is never in why. Because that's the first thing I want to know is why. Whatever it is. And usually it's something bad, something I perceive as bad, and some things that everyone would perceive were bad. Oscar?
I think the question why is always a need for understanding.
Exactly.
And then we are back.
And that's not your solution. The understanding is not the solution. It never satisfies, no matter how well you understand. It never got me to a satisfaction or a happiness, if you want to say. My real happiness, so to speak, which I'm using loosely, really more back to peace and joy and acceptance, comes from letting go of needing to know why. That's where surrender comes in. Is Chuanza trying to understand why the fish are happy? No. He said, I can see their joy because I experienced joy. I know through my joy. Same thing when I'm in recovery and I hear a guy or hear someone talk. Let's say they tell their story at a year and they talk about everything that's gone on the last year. Through my own experience, I can experience the same relief with them because I experienced the same thing. It's not through me trying to understand why AA works, as in this does this and all the self-help business that you see. It's really more of, I've been where you are. This is what I did. Oscar?
Yeah, this morning I had a conversation with the sponsor about self-knowledge in the big book, that we can come to these meetings and someone tells us about disease we have and about powerlessness. And then I understand it. And as a matter of fact, I had this phase, and in the big book, all the examples have the same. So Fred and so on, all have the same problem. They think, okay, now I know it, and I can save myself because I know I'm powerless. But the knowledge of the powerlessness doesn't make the powerlessness go. So I'm still as powerless as before with my knowledge about being powerless. So self-knowledge also is not, it's so many times in the big book, self-knowledge is not what I needed. I needed the other 11 steps too.
You needed self-surrender, and surrender came through the steps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the next thing then. The surrender is, okay, if my self-knowledge can't help me, then I have to lay down my weapons.
Mm.
And one of my biggest weapons was knowledge, or not knowledge, but knowledge in a classic.
Right. Education.
Education, things to know, my judgment, my criticism, my analysis, all these things were really my weapons. And I all had to lay them down. So no more arguing about why is there step 6 and 7? Why don't they make one step out of this and this? All this bargaining and talking, and it all had to go. And judging was huge. Letting go of judgment and was such a huge change in my recovery. Just in the meetings, just let my judgment go in the meetings. And then, because when I came in and I saw their joy, I judged about their joy. It's not real. They are actors. They are faking. They are all kind of things. So that was a big part of surrendering, actually, to the lesson. I don't understand anything I see. It's okay. I don't understand anything.
Oscar, there's nothing wrong with education. There's nothing wrong with. We're sitting here reading a story out of a book. Okay, so we are using a story that. Now, the question is this, though. Are we reading this story to gain more intellectual knowledge? Or are we reading the story as the finger pointing at the moon? Or are we reading this story as pointing to something else? What's between the words? What's between the letters? Is this story pointing at something, which it obviously is? That's what we're seeing out of it. But if I came at this purely from an intellectual viewpoint, then what I thought of this story would probably be something different, or I may not even understand it at all. That's the difference. And I try to read anything I read, I try to read in that way. Can I glean the education or what this story is pointing to? Now, can we eventually get to the point to where we just look at the moon and don't need things pointing to the moon? Sure. I think that's maybe down the line. I don't know. Do I read less books now? Yes. Do I still want to learn things? Yes. But what am I gleaning from what I'm learning? That's the real question. Just like Chuang Tzu understood from his experience. He saw the experience of the fish. The fish were jumping and leaping, and he saw what they were doing. He wasn't looking at the chemical makeup of this and that would cause this reaction that would do. No. He was learning from their experience. And it's really not about the fish. It's not about any of that I can see. I think it's more about that I already know. I'm walking the same path. If I keep a focus on the moon rather than, see, the friend was looking at the finger. How do you know that? How about this? How about that? Same thing I did over analyzing sobriety when I came in. My very first meeting, I got hope that it would work for me, but I was a lot smarter than the guy chairing the meeting, so I knew I could get it. See, that intellectual, I was more successful. I'd size up the room. Oh, I'm more successful than all these guys combined, probably. I'd sit there and do all that ego stuff. If I've been able to do this and this, oh, I can for sure figure this out. If they can do it. Took 5 years in and out. Couldn't get it until I let that go. Oh, it's not about what I know or how well I comprehend or any of those things. Will I allow their experience? Will I look through all of that to their experience and how they got sober? Will I do that? Let that stuff go. Took a while, but that was the surrender process, the laying down of those weapons. I didn't realize, but none of those weapons were effective. I thought they were, and I kept carrying them around. I kept using them. All I had was a dart gun. I didn't know it. It was pretty, but ineffective. One of those dart guns with rubber stoppers like you had as a kid. That's all I had. Nothing more. Wouldn't even put an eye out. Oscar, I think I want to go back and read just really quickly through this first at least couple of weeks of Course in Miracles, just the opening phrase. Course in Miracles for January, starts 1st of January, is really all about seeing things differently. And Chuang Tzu had to look at the fish jumping differently, and so did his friend if he wanted to really understand. So I'm going to read through these really quick. January 1, nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window means anything. Nothing in this place means anything. I have given everything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place, all the meaning that it has for me. I do not understand anything I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. I have to let go of what I think I know to see what I don't know. These thoughts do not mean anything. Now we're starting to meddle a little bit. These thoughts do not mean anything. They're like the things I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place. We learn we're not our thoughts. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am upset because I see something that is not there. I see only the past. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. These are I'm on January 8th now, Thursday the 8th. I see nothing as it is now. How true is that? Everything I'm thinking is predicated by what's happened in the past. When I'm doing that many times, it's fear-based and I'm just creating chaos, really. My thoughts do not mean anything. And the way I see that, the thoughts having meaning, with thoughts having meaning, we know that super high percentage, 99.99, are just, our thoughts are not real. They're things made up that never happen. When I think about it, it really is that way. I can obsess over things that never happen at all. And it goes on and on. I'll stop right there. The link to A Course in Miracles calendar that you can import into Google Calendars is in the episode notes, the very same calendar I'm reading from. I read these occasionally and get some good things out of them. When I defend, I'm inviting attack is one of the good ones I like. And notice what Chuang Tzu did. His friend was attacking him. So instead of continuing with the argument, let's get back to what we were really talking about. See, now I used to take the opposite. I try not to now. If somebody wants to argue with me about it, I usually just mentally say F you and just go on and not even explain myself to them and just drop it all together. That's my way of actually not being compassionate, not being understanding. I'm learning to follow through though and get back to because his friend was asking a question maybe because he wanted to know, not necessarily because he was trying to be argumentative. He may have wanted to know what he was talking about. I don't know. Drew, you got some understanding here for us? It's usually, you chime in at the last minute and tell us.
No, this has been a good conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Can I see this differently? You know, we read these stories every week. I think y'all are like me. I never know what we're going to get out of them or if there's anything to get, and there always is. If we left this story just at surface level, we could say there's nothing there for us to apply in our life. But through our conversation, I know that I can understand others from my understanding. I know that I can may be able to help someone with my experience. Also, the real story is not this story. The real story is when I look through this, what it's pointing at. And every story, every word, the big book itself, the steps themselves are all fingers pointing at the moon. In other words, they're all looking at something greater. They're not the answer. The words are not the solution. They're pointing to the solution. Well, can we look at these words differently so we can see the solution?
Buddy, all this stuff starts with willingness.
Yes. And it's just willingness to be open, Brian.
Yep.
It's not willingness to accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. It's just willingness to be open. Mm-hmm. I've got something I've been doing in meditation. I open my heart to the present moment. I send love to the present moment. How do I do that? By saying I send you love. I open my heart to you. I send you love. How can I be of service to you right now? And just sit there, see what happens. And with time, that comes off the cushion. And I can do that that's the how can I be helpful? That's saying all of that. Mm-hmm. So it's the same kind of thing. It's being willing. That's willingness for me. It's not that I've got to figure it out or check off any boxes today. I just have to be willing. The rest takes care of itself. It's my openness that needs to be there. I don't have to figure life out anymore. Used to think that was my job to hold everything together.
Already figured out for us.
Yeah.
Within
just
reason.
Said do what, Brian?
I said within reason. It doesn't mean I could sit around and do nothing.
Being willing is not doing nothing. That's the thing that there's effort involved, but it's effortless effort in that it's without self-effort, Buddy adding his to it. And the way I do that is by doing the next right thing that's in front of me to do.
Next indicated step.
Yeah. I don't sit around all day and do nothing. I do what's in front of me to do. Do I work? Yes, I do. I work hard. Actually, that's something I'm needing to. I see that as a way that I still hold on to some fear is by not allowing myself to let things go at the appropriate time during the day and working more hours than I should in a day because I still have that aspect of thinking it's up to me to get this done business. So we're all at some phase in that journey. Anything else, guys? If Chuang Tzu wanted to understand the joy of fishes, he had to have his own joy. If he didn't have joy himself in the story, if he didn't have joy himself, he wouldn't have understood the joy of fishes. So my question goes back to what we were talking about at first. Am I maintaining my spiritual condition? Am I doing what I need to wake up? Am I in a lull? If I am, can I be open to allowing some of those practices to change, evolve, lay down the ones that aren't feeding me now and be open to the ones that I have a desire to do that do feed me. And if I'm open, they'll show themselves. The week I thought I need to start meditating, a sponsee showed up, said, I'm going to start meditating. What, and I'm like within a couple of days. And he had a podcast he was listening to. It was James Bean Spiritual Awakening Radio. So I started listening to that, started getting information. It all fell in place. But like you said, Brian, I had to be willing. But I couldn't just sit there and do nothing and expect it to just come my way. When the tools were shown, I had to go do some work. I had to listen. I looked at different practices. That's, in that regard, that would be the work involved. Anything else, guys, before we close? You guys have a great week. Hope to see you next week. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.